Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. My name's Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com, and Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners, and you can find it on all the popular podcast streaming platforms and on YouTube. And today my guest is Jason Hunt, and his business is I Squared Leadership. And today we're going to be talking about the 4 elements of influencing anyone. And Jason makes it easier for people to like and follow their leaders. He is the founder and CEO of I Squared Leadership, and he has had the pleasure of working with companies large and small. Jason's first major leadership role was to run a branch of 100 church members in outer Siberia when he was 19. Wow, Siberia would have been freezing.
It was a bit cold.
Since then, he has served in a number of leadership positions, including principal of a school. He has a master's degree in leadership, is certified by the John Maxwell Leadership Institute, and is the author of The Other Side, 5 Rules for Leading with Influence. Jason lives in Minnesota in the US with his wife and 4 kids.
Talking with the Experts.
Well, welcome, Jason.
Happy to be here, Rose. Thanks for having me.
Right. So you say that there are only 2 ways to lead, through your title and through your influence. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit more for me, please?
Yeah, let me just kind of share why I believe that. And it's through personal experience, Rose. I got into leadership and failed miserably. So you read that, I was a principal of a school, and that was my dream job. That's what I wanted to do going through college and everything. And I finally got there. And the first year was fabulous. I mean, people were nice to me. They followed what I asked them to do. They invited me to their parties and stuff. But the second year was difficult, very difficult, because I wasn't leading in the right kinds of ways. And therefore, our culture started to become a little bit toxic. We couldn't keep a hold of our teachers very well. Our students were acting up more. They weren't showing up to school. There was just a lot of issues that were going on. And I was struggling as a leader. Perhaps like some of your listeners, we go in every single day, work our tail end off, right? We give everything we possibly can, and it's just not working. And we get frustrated, like, what is going on? And this is kind of where I was at during that second year of leading the school. And I didn't know what to do, honestly. I wanted to quit. I wanted to give up and leave. But as you read, I've got a wife and 4 kids. And so that makes it kind of hard to leave because, regular paycheck and health insurance and those kinds of things are kind of nice to have. So I had to figure out what's going on. And I ended up asking some questions to our teaching staff. I just wanted to know. I'm like, Rose, I've been leading you for a couple of years as your principal. It's not going well. Help me understand, what could I do better? And there's one teacher that said, Jason, you don't quite understand what leadership is. You think it's all about your title and the position that you have. And I was 32 at the time, and this is a teacher that was well into her 60s, so double my age. And I said, okay, well, help me realize, what is leadership? And she goes, you're trying to go full steam ahead down the track as like a locomotive, but you've not connected any boxcars. And if you don't make connections to people, you're kind of useless. Like, we don't need you as a leader. And that's where the big light came on for me of saying, I've been trying to lead with my title, like forcefully and in an authoritative kind of way. And it just wasn't working at all. And she helped open up the understanding, right? Give me the light that, oh my gosh, I'm doing this so wrong. It's about influence. It's about connecting with people and growing my influence and using that in a positive way to make a good impact in their lives. And it was revelatory for me. I put it into practice and learned it. I studied everything I could about it, found a couple good mentors, and we turned that school around in a matter of 2 years.
Yeah, leadership, and it's been discussed on this podcast often. And it all comes down to connection with your team.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're not connecting, then you're not leading, you're not doing anything, you're just being a boss and you're not, you've got to talk to your people. You've got to find out about them. They have to know you. You can't just go to someone's party and, have a great time. And that's not really a way of getting to, excuse me, of getting to know people.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So, okay. So, we talked about, so what are the two ways to lead, other than through your title or through your influence? You alluded to that, but do you want to go a little bit deeper?
Yeah. So, what really makes the influence is the big question. And that's what, as I work with companies and organizations, as I go around and speak, people are frequently wondering, how can I have more influence then? If leadership is influence, I want to be able to do it the right way, which is great, but what can I do? And obviously, there's a million books written about leadership. It's a complicated, convoluted subject that you can spend weeks and weeks and weeks trying to study. And I'm just a simple guy. And I'm like, look, we've got to be able to simplify this down into something that we can be able to remember and that we can be able to just put into practice. And so through all my study and then through my experience and some interviews with different leaders, I've learned that there are 4 components, 4 elements to influencing people. One is you have to care. And I relate that to the heart, right? So that we got to have a heart that cares. The second piece is, as we've discussed, you've got to connect. And we can use our head to connect, right? We can listen well. We can ask right kinds of questions. We can be intent in our ability to actively listen. The third thing is to collaborate. We have an ability to add power to people, and they have an ability to add power to us. There's an incredible force that happens when we go out in the world trying to serve, because we only help people get better, which then helps us get better. And so we can use our hands to collaborate. And the final piece is our feet. We can use our feet to show courage. And when I talk about courage, I'm not talking about like making hard decisions, although that's really important. I'm talking about being authentic, like showing up as you, not pretending to be some fictional leader or pretending to be, something other people would expect of you, but just showing up and honestly being yourself. So it's care with the heart, connection with the head, collaboration with the hands, courage with the feet. When I work with leaders, they're like, oh, well, that makes a whole lot of sense. And that's easy to remember, right?
Yeah, I think
it is, but it's true.
Yeah, I think collaboration or, being a good leader allows people to manage upwards rather than the leader managing downwards.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to have both, but I think it's more important that a leader allows people to manage upwards because, you've got to let the good thoughts filter up. And, a good leader really has to take on board the comments and maybe decisions or objections of their team.
Yeah, you're spot on. I think that, the common cold of bad leadership is poor listening.
Yeah.
And poor listening happens because we're not asking questions, which then goes back to the care piece. Sometimes we just don't care. We think we've got it all figured out. And we've got this image in our head that leaders know the entire vision. So our job is to show up and inspire people by sharing the vision. While that's important, a better way to do it is to show up and just be curious, ask questions, listen well, allow them to participate in the process of developing the vision, allow them to participate in the process of creating processes within your own organization, right? Just let them be part of it. And there's so much more that they could teach you that we just miss out on if we just show up and dictate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes leaders don't know everything. And a lot of times their staff members or team members know heaps more than they do, but they choose not to be. Well, they are leaders in their own right because they lead themselves, but they're not leaders of a team, if that makes sense. But yeah, staff members, team members can be a lot smarter, have a lot more knowledge than the actual leader themselves. And it's always good to listen. Actively, especially.
And the power of that, Rose, here's the power of that. So, I work with a lot of middle-level leaders and a lot of new leaders. That's typically my clientele that I end up working with. And new leaders come into their roles and responsibilities with 2 big myths, 2 fallacies that they got in their mind. They think they have to know all the answers and they have to solve all the problems. And when I explain to them and talk to them about this idea of collaboration, it's kind of like a burden is lifted off their shoulders. They're suddenly like, wait a minute, I don't have to know everything, do I? No, you don't, right? You're taking too much on as a leader. You're making this job too difficult. It's a lot easier if you just kind of back up a little bit and say, hey, let's do this as a team. I'm going to work with you. You're going to work with me. I don't have all the answers. I can't solve all the problems, but together we can, right? We've got lots of information. We can be able to do it together. So it's just a big relief that leaders can take on once they embrace that. It's a hard hurdle to get over because, again, we've got these stereotypes in our head. This is what a leader is. But if we can get over that hurdle, it makes leadership a lot easier, and it gets a team like closely connected, involved with you, where you can have that kind of influence with them.
Okay, so I'm going to put like a worst case scenario on you. Someone's climbed the leadership ladder. They've stepped on a lot of people to get to where they are. What can you do about that type of a leader?
And Rose, when you ask that, are you asking if you're that leader that stepped on of toes, or you're asking for people that are trying to follow that kind of leader?
I think we might look at both, because there are both. The ones that it's walked all over everybody to get to the top and backstabbed, and they haven't worked really that hard, but they've climbed the corporate ladder because they've stuck up to the boss basically, and then there's the other ones that have just have got their really. I mean, they've worked hard, but still aren't what you'd call good leaders. They've just got there, but not really on merit. Sure.
Yeah. So those leaders that have stepped on the toes, I mean, again, I was kind of there a little bit, right? I mean, I got in and I was leading with my title and my position, which is kind of what you're describing. And I've seen in the corporate world, especially, a lot of leaders that will use family connections or politics or whatever else in order to get into that position because they're power hungry. And then they get in that position, and it's usually about a year or two into their position, and they recognize, oh my gosh, this isn't giving me the satisfaction. It's not providing the fulfillment that I imagined my job would provide to me. What's going on? And this is where that fourth C, the idea of courage, comes into place, where now you've got to eat a little humble pie and recognize that we need to start doing things a little bit differently. I have found that just simply going to your staff and saying, hey guys, I know you might not think the best of me right now. I know I've probably made some bad mistakes in order to get here. I know I could be a better leader, but I need you to know that I'm going to try harder. And here's 2 or 3 more things that I'm going to do. And can you help me do these things? If you've not been a very good listener to this point, tell them I'm going to try to be a better listener. So if we're in a conversation and you feel like I'm dominating the conversation, tell me to stop and just be honest with me. Just tell me to stop and I'll start listening better. Or perhaps, I've delegated, but I keep micromanaging all the time because I feel like I gotta have my fingers all over the place. Well, I want to back up and I really want to be able to empower you, right? This is about collaboration. So I want to empower you. So if you feel like I'm just hovering over the top of you, I'm being that helicopter leader, tell me to back off, tell me to back off. And if you can be that humble and that authentic with your people, they'll forgive you. The people being led are hoping, praying, and wishing for a good leader. They want you to succeed. And the better a leader that you are, the better life they have. And so they're going to be on your team if you can humble yourself and ask for that permission.
Yeah. What about the trust, though? I mean, you may have burnt a few bridges along the way. What about, having to rebuild that trust or gain that trust if you've not had it in the first place?
That process, unfortunately, takes a lot longer. I'd like to say trust can happen overnight. And I think that initial trust can by just being real sincere with people, of getting to deep questions from the beginning. You can build trust pretty quickly. But if you've burnt that bridge, like if you've used that trust in a bad way, it is much more difficult to be able to reestablish trust, and it will take time. I found that one of the most powerful ways to do this is to make a promise and to fulfill that promise, and do everything you can. So perhaps, you've got into a certain position and you've broken some trust and somebody's depending upon you to get some tasks done. Well, we'll make some promises and say, hey, you know what? I need to get these 3 things done. I know maybe you don't trust me all the way because of stuff that's happened in the past. Here's the deal, though. I'm going to get them done by next Friday at 3:00. And I'm going to do everything in my power to get them done. If I can't get them done by then, I'm going to tell you ahead of time so it's not a surprise. But trust me, I'm going to do all that I can, and then do it, right? I just use this phrase of saying, do what you said you will do, and that's really the trick of it. That's what trust really comes down to: is can people trust you for your word?
Yeah.
And so you just have to continue to get and almost in an intentional or an open way, point it out. Say, hey, I promised, I fulfilled. Do you see? I'm trying. I'm trying to kind of build back this trust, and people will forgive. Sometimes some will forgive sooner than others, but they'll forgive over the course of time. Again, they're trying to root for you. They want to be able to work with a good leader, and so it can happen over the course of time. But it's going to take persistence and some patience.
So I guess you can, as being a good leader in the workplace is all very well and good, but how can you transfer this to being a good leader at home?
Fabulous. And I think, Rose, out of all the places that you need to be a good leader, it has to happen in the home. It really does. And it's the same principles. It comes down to care, connection, collaboration, and courage. Your kids just want to know that you care for them. That's really what it is. And if you stomp around all day long and saying, do this and do that because I'm the dad or I'm the mom, I'm not sure if that's the best way to be able to run a household. Every so often you have to, okay? If your teenager is going to sneak out of the house and you got to give a consequence and they're upset at you, I am the dad. You've snuck out of the house. You violated my trust. This is what's happening, right? But otherwise, we should be spending a lot of time developing relationships with our kids. That's where it's at. Doing it in a way where we're sincerely interested in their interests, where we intentionally take time to be able to just spend with them. And that's probably the hardest part of parenting, is our lives get so busy that we don't allow or allocate the time that's necessary for us to build those connections with them, for us to be able to really show the care that we have, or to be able to find out where their interests are so we can figure out how to empower them. It's just a matter of time. And so in my life, I've got 4 kids, and I'm trying my very best to be a dad. And I'm not the best dad there is. Trust me, there's lots of mistakes and shortcomings I have. But I have figured out the power of intentionally scheduling time. So for example, there's usually 4 Sundays in each month. So on the first Sunday, I schedule an hour and a half with my first kid, period. Like, he gets that time to do whatever the heck he wants to do. Sometimes we just sit around and talk. Sometimes we'll go somewhere, whatever that is, we're just going to do it. Second Sunday, I spend with my second kid. Third Sunday, third kid. And so I have time specifically allocated for them. Just tonight, actually, we went on a 3-hour drive with my 15-year-old because he's got his learner's permit for driving and he needs to get some hours in. And I did. It was a silly thing. We drove an hour and a half away to go pick up a free item that we found on Facebook. Did we really need the item? Not really. Did we need to drive that far? Not a chance. But did I need to spend 3 hours in the car with my son? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And I thought, lots of things are shut down. There's COVID restrictions. There's not too many more things we can do. So let's just get them at some hours behind the wheel and spend some quality time and talk.
Yeah, and have a conversation about something. Doesn't matter what.
Yep. Yeah. Using the same principles, listening, asking questions, really trying to build that connection with my son, trying to figure out what kind of bits of wisdom I can share with him. It's an intentional thing. It doesn't happen by accident. We have to be purposeful in our actions.
Now tell me a bit about your book.
Yeah. So I've written a book called The Other Side, and it's called The Other Side because it's written specifically for those individuals that were kind of the followers, if you will. And then they've stepped over a line to become a leader. They've stepped onto the other side to become that leader. And so in this book, I discuss 5 different principles on how we can be able to lead with influence. And it's really designed to be able to help the newer or new leaders or even emerging leaders just have the confidence that they need and the tools that are important for them to be able to be people-centric and relationship-centric as they step into leadership. I've found that a lot of new leaders are focused more on tasks and on putting processes together and managing things so it flows well. But you got to step away from that a little bit. And new leaders really need to be focusing more on the relationships than anything else at the beginning, because it's your team that's going to get you success.
Yeah. And so where can we find this book?
Sure. If you hop on Amazon and just do a search, it'll be there. Just look for the book, The Other Side by Jason Hunt, and it will pop up. In addition to that, Rose, and I didn't share this with you earlier, but there's another resource if your listeners are interested in it. One of the things that I've found problematic with some leaders is they just don't have enough time to do the personal stuff, right? To be able to really sit down and get to know your employees. So I created 11 time hacks. These are hacks that we can be able to put into place to find more time. And it's a PDF, it's a free resource. And listeners can be able to go to www.influencingforimpact.com/time. And on that, all my contacts are there. You can be able to get a hold of the book that way, but you can get this free PDF too, and be able to learn these 11 strategies in order to save time and find more time in your day to be able to really focus on the people side of life.
Oh,
Again,
that's terrific, Jason. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure it
Oh,
will
you're
be
welcome.
most useful to anyone, really. Doesn't have to be particularly a leader. It could be useful.
No, this could be, these are hacks that anybody can use. It's directed towards leaders, but any one of those hacks, if you're breathing and living, they're applicable.
Absolutely. All right. Do you have any wise words of wisdoms before we go?
If I could just share this tidbit, there's a proverb that says, if you think you're leading and nobody's following you, you're only taking a walk. And I think that's a really important proverb. And the core of that is an element that we need to connect with people and help bring them along with us. People say that leadership is a lonely business, but that's because they're doing it wrong. We need to be working together. And if you're so far ahead of the trail that you've left other people, stop, turn back around, find the people and come with them. And that's the biggest piece of wisdom I could say is leadership is not a lonely game. It's a team game. It's connecting with people and helping them and bringing them along in the process. The number one job and responsibility of a leader is to develop other people. And we can do it. We can do it if we're intentional about it.
Yeah, but no, because to me, management teams shouldn't be a hierarchy. It should be a flat level. That's my thinking.
It's good thinking. I wish more people would embrace that.
Yeah, I think it should be like that. Because I don't think, a leader should be like just God, or sorry, not to be, religious, but,
it's fine.
I just don't think that they should be the king or the queen or whatever.
I agree with you.
All right. Well, thank you, Jason. I will put all the links to your social media, which you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and on YouTube. And I'm looking forward to you getting your podcast up and going. Perhaps you could read the book. You could make an audio book out of your book.
There we go. Perhaps that might be the next step for me.
All right. You take care and have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Rose. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Talking with the experts.